been dining with Erskine in his pretty little house in Berkeley Walk. We were sitting over cigarettes and port when the conversation happened to turn to the question of literary forgery. I insisted that forgeries were merely an artistic desire for perfect representation. And we have no right to quarrel with an artist over how he presents his work. All art being, to some degree, a mode of acting, an attempt to realize on an imaginative plane one's own personality. To censure an artist for forgery is to confuse a problem in ethics with what? Aesthetics.
What about a young man who had a strange theory about a work of art, believed in his theory, and committed a forgery to prove it?
Well, it's quite different.
Yes, quite.
Did you ever know anybody who did that?
A great friend of mine, Cyril Graham. Somebody fascinating, foolish, and very heartless. He left me the only legacy I ever received in my life.
What was it? It was the full-length portrait of a young man in Elizabethan dress, his hand on a book. He looked just 17, and with great personal beauty. What a charming thing. And who is this wonderful young man whom art has preserved for us?
This is the portrait of Mr. W.H.
Mr. W.H. And just who is Mr. W.H.?
You don't remember? Take a look at the book where his hand is resting.
To the only begetter of these ensuing sonnets. Good heavens! Shakespeare's Mr. W.H.?
Cyril Graham used to say so.
But he looks nothing like Lord Pembroke. I saw the Penshurst portrait of him 2 weeks ago.
You think the sonnets were addressed to Lord Pembroke?
I am sure of it.
Well,
he, Shakespeare, and Mary Fitton are the personages of the sonnet. There's no doubt about it.
well, I agree with you, but not always. I used to believe in Cyril Graham and his theory.
And that was. I love theories about the sonnets, but I don't think you'll convert me. There's no question there.
I don't believe in it anymore, so I don't think I'll convert you. But first, I must tell you about Cyril Graham. We were schoolmates at Eton, immense friends. His grandfather, I don't think Lord Crediton liked Cyril. His guardian. Now, he never forgave Cyril's mother for marrying a man without a title. And he thought Cyril effeminate. No, Cyril was a good rider and a fencer, but the only two things that gave Cyril pleasure were to dress up and recite poetry and to act. He used to play all the girls' parts. In our school plays, in As You Like It, he was the only perfect Rosalind I've ever seen. After taking his degree, he came to London for a diplomatic exam, but he spent his days reading the sonnets and his nights at the theatre. He was wild to go onto the stage. It was all Lord Crediton and I could do to prevent him. If we hadn't, he might be alive today. It is always a silly thing to give advice, but good advice is absolutely fatal. If you ever make that error, believe me, you'll be sorry for it. It was beautiful, petulant. I found him terribly insincere. That may have been from his inordinate desire to please people. And he was spoiled. All charming people are. It's the secret of their success and the secret of their attraction. He certainly was handsome. Those who didn't like him, parents, college tutors, young men reading for the church, used to say he was merely pretty. But there was more to it than that. I think Cyril Graham was the most splendid creature I ever saw. One day, Cyril wrote to me, come to his room. I was surprised. I used to see him every day anyway. When I arrived, he was wild with excitement. He told me he discovered the secrets of Shakespeare's sonnets, that the scholars were wrong, and only he knew who Mr. W.H. really was. Now this was from evidence in the sonnets themselves. Now he produced a bundle of notes, first pointing out that whoever Mr. W.H. was, he had to be somebody vital to Shakespeare's dramatic art. Now, not just his sonnets. See, that couldn't be said of Lord Pembroke. Indeed, Mr. W.H. couldn't be of high birth. As the 25th sonnet shows, in which Shakespeare contrasts him with those who are great princes' favourites. Cyril had many proofs, ingeniously complicated. Peruse them at your leisure. Then Cyril instructed me to clear my mind of any preconceived notion, and asked you, if not of noble birth, could the young man be one of such beauty, the source of inspiration, to whom the bard promised immortality, where breath most breathes, even in the mouth of men. Unless he was the wonderful boy actor for whom Shakespeare created Juliet and Rosalind, Portia and Desdemona, and Cleopatra herself. Everything that was obscure in the sonnets became clear, and Cyril had discovered the boy's name, Willie, as he liked to call him, Willie Hughes. Now he deciphered that Christian name from the punning sonnet 130 and 143, and found the surname hidden in the 8th line of the 20th sonnet, where Mr. W.H. is described as a man in hue or hues in his control. Hughes, printed with a capital letter in the original edition, like somebody's last name. I made one objection. The name, Will Hughes, isn't in the list of Shakespeare's acting company in the first folio. Cyril said that absence pointed to the truth of his theory. How clearly Willie Hughes, from evidence of Sonnet 86, had abandoned Shakespeare's company for some rival troupe, Chapman's or Marlowe's, breaking the bard's heart. I was instantly converted. Willie Hughes became as real to me as Shakespeare. Oh, a wonderful evening where we sat up till dawn, reading and rereading the sonnets. At some point, it became obvious that the only way to put Cyril's theory before the world would be with independent proof of Willie Hughes's existence. Now, Cyril was annoyed. He called me a Philistine. Weeks went by. We searched the registers and city churches, the records offices, manuscript collections, the Lord Chamberlain's papers. Nothing there, of course, nothing to discover. Day by day, the existence of Willie Hughes became more and more problematic. Cyril went out of town. I thought He'd gone to his grandfather's, and I got a wire asking him that evening. He called me Doubting Thomas, the only apostle who demanded proof, and the only one who got it. Then produced the picture. He said he discovered it by chance, nailed to the side of an antique chest he bought at a farmhouse in Warwickshire. He seemed so calm about it. But it never occurred to me that Cyril was playing a trick, that this picture was a forgery.
Is it a forgery?
It was a very good forgery, but it's one nonetheless. And we amused ourselves talking about getting an artist to facsimile the picture for the frontispiece of a book announcing the great theory. One unlucky day, I saw some beautiful drawings. I bought them and found out who the artist was. Edward Merton. I went to see him, a pale, interesting fellow with a rather common-looking wife. I asked to see more drawings. And there it was, in the portfolio, a drawing of Mr. W.H. Where did you get that by? I said. Oh, he got confused. Oh, it's nothing of any value. That's what you did for Mr. Cyril Graham, said his wife. If the gentleman wants to buy it, let him. Did you paint the portrait of Mr. W.H.? I said. I don't know what you mean, said Merton. Of course, I was. I can't bear to think of it now. I went to Cyril's. I waited for him to come home and told him I discovered his forgery. He went pale. I only did it for your sake, so you believe. It doesn't affect the truth of the theory. Well, we had a quarrel. What I said to him was unjust. He was dead the next morning. Dead? Shot himself with a revolver. Some of the blood splashed on the frame of the painting here. Letter. Telling me he had such faith in his theory that he was offering his life as a sacrifice to our secret of the song, saying it was up to me to take it to the world, to unlock the secret of Shakespeare's heart.
What a tragic tale. Why haven't you followed his wishes?
No, the theory's no good from top to bottom.
Oh, my dear Erskine, you're completely wrong. I believe in willing you.
Don't say that. There's something fatal about the idea. Don't take up the subject of whether you will break your heart.
Erskine, it is your duty to give this perfect theory to the world. If you won't do it, I will.
You forget that a thing is not necessarily true just because somebody died for it. I never recovered from Cyril's death. But will you? No such person existed. As for taking it to the world believes that Cyril Graham shot himself by accident. The only proof of the suicide was in the letter he sent, but his grandfather believed it an accident. No, don't make a fool of yourself. You assume the existence of the very person whose existence is to be proved. The sonnets were addressed to Lord Pembroke, the matter is closed.
You have given me the key to the greatest mystery in literature. I won't rest until I make everyone recognize that Cyril Graham was the subtlest critic in history. I walked home through St. James's Park. Dawn was breaking over London. White swans were lying asleep on the lake. The palace looked gaunt against the sky. I thought of Cyril Graham and tears came to my eyes. Past noon when I awoke. The sun was streaming through the curtains, long slanting of dusty gold. I took down my copy of the sonnets and told my man I would be home to no one. After a cup of chocolate and a petit pain, every poem, I started studying them. I looked. Every poem seemed to corroborate Cyril Graham's theory. I felt my hand on Shakespeare's heart, counting each pulse of passion. And I thought of that wonderful boy actor, seeing his face in every line. One thing that struck me in the 53rd sonnet, the bard compliments Will Hughes on his acting, a range extending from Rosalind to Juliet, Beatrice to Ophelia. What is your substance? Whereof are you made, that millions of strange shadows on you tend? Since everyone hath, every one shade, and you but one, can every shadow tend? Lines unintelligible if not addressed to an actor. In Shakespeare's day, shadow had a technical meaning connected to the stage. The best in this kind are but shadows, says Theseus of actors in the Midsummer Night's Dream. How is it, Shakespeare seems to be saying to Willie Hughes, that you have so many personalities? He goes on to point out this beauty embodies each dream of the creative imagination, further expanded on in the sonnet which follows. Oh, how much more doth beauty beauteous seem by that sweet ornament which truth doth give. Inviting us to notice how the truth of acting, of visible presentation on the stage, adds to the wonder of poetry, giving life, actual reality to an ideal form. Yet, in the 67th sonnet, the bard calls on Willie Hughes to abandon the stage with all its artificiality, its immorality, the suggestion of its immorality, the remoteness from the real world, from noble actions. Why should false painting imitate his cheek, and steal dead seeming of the living hue? Why should poor beauty indirectly seek roses of shadow, since his rose is true? Strange that so great a playwright as Shakespeare, who realized his own perfection as an artist, writes in these terms about the theatre. But he was weary of the world of puppets, ashamed at having made himself a model. Sonnet 110. The next one is especially bitter. Thence comes it that my name receives a brand, and almost thence my nature is subdued to what it works in, like the dyer's hand. Pity me then, and wish I were renewed. Something that puzzled me, even Cyril Graham seemed to miss it, was the value Shakespeare set on his young friend marrying. He himself had married young. The result had been unhappiness. Then I made my great discovery. What Shakespeare proposes for Willie Hughes is the marriage with his muse, definitely put forward in the 82nd sonnet from the bitterness of his heart at the defection of the boy actor for whom he'd written his greatest parts, and whose beauty had suggested them. I'll grant thou wert not married to my muse. I worked hard like that over the sonnets, for days refusing invitations, never going out, one point, I thought I found Willie Hughes in Elizabethan literature. In an account of the last night of the Earl of Essex, he calls upon his musician, "Play my song, Will Hughes, and I will sing it to myself." Yet, Lord Essex died in 1576. Shakespeare himself was only 12. At least something to discover it was an Elizabethan name. And the first English actress was the lovely Margaret Hughes. What more likely than that between her and the musician came the beautiful boy actor of Shakespeare's plays? From thoughts of Willie Hughes' birth, I passed to thoughts of how he might have died. Perhaps he was one of those English actors who went over the sea to Germany, playing in the court of the Duke of Brunswick, himself a dramatist, rumoured to have bought the young son of a Greek merchant for the boy's weight in amber. However, at any rate, Romeo and Juliet was brought out in 1613 in Dresden, along with Hamlet and Lear. To none other than Willie Hughes must have come the death mask of Shakespeare in 1615 by the hand of one of the English ambassador's men. And likely too, he was one of those English comedians, mimes, the old Latin chronicle calls them, who were slain in a sudden uprising at Nuremberg, secretly buried outside the city in a vineyard by young men who had found pleasure in their performances and sought to be instructed in the mysteries of the new art. Pleasing to think that this boy actor was the first to bring the new art to Germany, the precursor of Lessing and of Goethe. There's no evidence against it, but his true tomb, as Shakespeare saw, was in the bard's verse, his monument in the immortality of his poetry. After 3 weeks, I was determined to appeal to Erskine to do justice to the memory of Cyril Graham and give the world his wonderful interpretation of the sonnets. I covered sheets of paper with passionate arguments and proofs from my studies. It seemed to me I was not merely restoring Cyril Graham to his proper place in literary history, but rescuing the honour of Shakespeare himself. I put every bit of my faith into the letter to Erskine. As soon as I had sent it, a curious reaction came over me. My belief in the Willie Hughes theory of the sonnets was gone. I was perfectly indifferent to the whole subject. What had happened? Perhaps by finding perfect expression for it, I exhausted my passion. Or maybe the effort to convert someone else to a theory involves renouncing the power to believe in it yourself. Perhaps I was simply tired of the whole thing. Willie Hughes suddenly became to me a myth, a dream, the boyish fancy of a young man more anxious to convince others than be convinced himself. I'd said unjust, bitter things to Erskine in the letter. I went to Birdcage Walk and found him there. "My dear Erskine, I've come to apologize."
Apologize? What for?
For my letter.
Apologize? On the contrary, you've done me a great service. You've shown me Cyril's theory is perfectly sound.
You don't mean to say you believe in the Willie Hughes.
Why not? You proved it to me.
Well, there's no evidence at all. When I wrote to you that letter, I was under the influence of perfectly silly enthusiasm.
I don't understand. You convinced me that Willie Hughes is a reality. Have you changed your mind? Or is this some kind of a joke?
I really can't explain. But now I see there's nothing to it. The sonnets are addressed to Lord Pembroke.
I see you don't understand the theory.
You don't understand it? I feel as if I invented it. We argued for hours, but there was nothing I could say. Erskine told me he intended to devote his life to proving the theory, doing justice to Cyril Graham's memory. I begged him, laughed at him. No use. He thought me shallow. I thought him foolish. I came back to see him, and his man told me Erskine had gone to Germany. 2 years later, going into my club, the porter handed me a letter with a foreign postmark. It was from Erskine, in Provence. What? I can't believe it. The gist is that, having tried every way to prove the Willie Hughes theory, and failing, he's determined to sacrifice himself, like Cyril Graham. I believe in Willie Hughes. By the time you receive this, I shall have died by my own hand. For Willie Hughes, his sake, and that of Cyril Graham, whom I drove to his death. The truth was revealed. You rejected it. It comes back to you now, stained with the blood of 2 lives. Do not throw it away. Horrible. I feel sick, yet can't believe it. To die for a religious belief is the worst way to end your life. But a literary theory? I looked at the date. A week old. Perhaps it's not too late. I rush home, pack my things, take the night train from Charing Cross. I think I'll never arrive, but here I am, at the Hotel d'Angleterre. They tell me that Erskine was buried in the English cemetery 2 days before. I say all kinds of wild things. They just look at me. Yes, Lady Erskine. And the English doctor. What a shock it must be to Lady Erskine. She carries herself well.
Oh, she knew it was coming for months.
Knew it was coming? Why doesn't she stop him?
Stop what? I don't know what you mean.
If her mother knows her son's committing suicide...
Suicide? He died of consumption. That's why he came here. I told you so. He wrote the 2 letters. Sharp to the end.
I wanted you to have this.
The portrait is now in my library, where my artistic friends admire it.
Yeah.
They even have decided which Elizabethan painter painted it. And sometimes, when I look at it, I think there's something to be said, after all, for the Willie Hughes theory.